Today's lecture is on gross domestic product. Alright, so to continue on with that sport analogy, this is how we keep score. So if we are competing against other countries, or if we want to compare who's winning, who's losing, and we're going to use GDP for that, that's kind of our score, that's our measurement. So GDP is the gross domestic product, okay, the total goods and services made at home, if you want to use that for various terms. GDP counts all final production within the U.S. borders in a given year. GDP, well, what good is it? What does it allow us to do? Why do we even measure it? Well, GDP allows us to keep track of the nation's production. So are we producing more? Are we producing less? And what does that mean? Well, if we're producing more, we have increased production, which is going to lead to employment opportunities. If companies are producing more, they're going to have more money, so they're going to be able to either hire more employees or pay their employers a higher wage. So usually, increased production, increased GDP, leads to a higher standard of living for a country. So the higher the GDP, more than likely the higher standard of living in that country. To determine this score, we're going to figure out what we kind of count everything, and then we exclude 6 different types of goods and services, things that we're not going to count in our GDP. The first category, used and intermediate goods, are not counted to avoid double counting. So an intermediate good is a good used to make something else, a different kind of good. So our example here is going to be the steering wheel inside of a car. The steering wheel is considered an intermediate good. The car is considered, that's what we would count GDP. So you count the car, not the steering wheel. And a used good would be if you go and buy a used truck. You don't count that second purchase again because the truck was already counted towards the GDP the initial time it was purchased. The second category, goods sold to be resold. So if a company, a business like Target, buys a bunch of t-shirts to load up its inventories from a different company, you don't count that purchase, you count the purchase when those t-shirts are sold at Target. That's when you count that towards the GDP. Third category, non-market production is not counted. So doing repairs on your own lawnmower, fixing your car, mowing your lawn, watching the kids, cutting your own hair, those kind of things are non-market production. You don't count those. And the fourth category is black market activity. So things that we cannot trace back to a business or a firm or a company, that's all not counted in the GDP. The fifth category, public and private cash payments. So Social Security, welfare benefits would be considered public cash payments. Gifts from the parent to the child, from child to child, parent to parent, etc. Those are not counted. And the last category is the sale of stocks and bonds. So all of those 6 different categories are not counted in the GDP. This next slide that we have is just an activity that you can do with yourself. You can pause it here and give yourself 10 different questions on how to do that. I pause it here because I'm about to show the answers from the next slide, and the next slide will have the answers along with reasons why these various goods are fit in the category, if they're counted or not counted. The formula for GDP is consumption plus gross private investment plus government spending plus net exports. And net exports is exports minus imports. So that's the formula for calculating GDP. And the first category is consumption. Household spending on durable goods, goods that last 3 years or more, and non-durable goods, goods that last less than 3 years, as well as services. And just as a reminder, household spending is the largest component of US GDP. Gross private investment is business spending on capital resources. So this is spending in order to increase future output or productivity. So if they buy a new bulldozer, or if they buy a new machine that helps produce shoes better, or something to help produce productivity or increase productivity. And then any new construction, whether it's a business or housing construction, is counted in investment. Government spending is just all levels of government spending on final goods and services and infrastructure count towards the GDP. So anytime the federal, state, or municipal or city level government spends money on something, that's government. And lastly, net exports. I'm running out of time, so I can't